from a healthcare perspective, chronic stress like we're under now, right? And the brain really interprets it in a way that's like threat, fight or flight mechanism.
Welcome to Grit Gym, guys. I'm Adam Reese, and you see behind me a gym where people come to for not just for exercise and nutrition advice, but also how to get to plan together for how to do their day-to-day so that they can be as healthy as possible and live the experience that they want. Much of that comes down to the mindset that they do have and the mental health that they're trying to acquire so that they can have more of the life experiences that we all want to have, but that are particular to them. And this is Brian Rath. I don't know your title, Brian, and I don't want to butcher it, so I'll let you do it. But can you kind of give them some insight as to why you have a perspective on mental health, what you've done for a job for the last however many years, decades, and what you think of mental health in today's situation with COVID-19?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I started working in public service back in like 2001, working in disability services. I ended up going to graduate school to become a mental health counselor, where my focus was on trauma-focused therapy. So I worked at an active center with children and their families on the south side of Chicago. And so after that, I ended up doing 2 years at Tanager Place, which is an inpatient facility in Cedar Rapids, where you work with pretty acute population of children and adolescents, also a lot of trauma history. A lot of depression, anxiety, personality disorders, the whole gamut. So I did that for 2 years and got burnt out doing trauma work.
I would imagine that that's probably easy. It's probably a pretty heavy emotional toll on you to do all that.
Definitely. The thing that they don't really do a really good job, and I don't know if they can in school, is to teach you kind of like how to manage your own shit. Sorry.
It's a good,
but how to like kind of
probably the most accurate way to put it, you know, how to manage your own shit.
Right. So I guess how to manage yourself and what you're bringing in, and like, because you're always going to have pieces of whatever your own experience is, and it's hard to kind of separate that sometimes when there are moments that you're helping individuals with and you connect with them in a way that's like, that definitely is bringing up all kinds of craziness in me right now. So I switched to working in rehabilitation therapy, where I don't necessarily work on the individual. I kind of, instead of focusing on specifically their mental health as the core issue, I look at like all the systems in the community and how either they're working and they're not working, and try to link them into the sources that will help them be more supported in their healthcare, whether that be psychiatry, therapy. So in my current program now, I work for the University of Iowa. My title is called a behavioral health consultant, and I also help the Iowa City School District with their transition program. It's a 4+ program where it follows students after high school, after they graduate.
So with that said, so you're working with people who have like obvious dramatic problems, but are they so obvious? Like, would we notice this person just walking down the street?
Nah, definitely not. Yeah. And
they just blend in.
You know, my past, like when I was in grad school, I worked with adults and kids who had really significant histories, but you wouldn't know it visibly just by looking at someone.
Yeah.
Just like everyone, I think, probably in your gym as well, like carries histories that they're able to function on a day-to-day basis. But there are things. So I was thinking about this because I haven't really done a lot of prep for it, but I do know a ton. I mean, my history is all in trauma-focused work, and chronic stress is what I feel like everyone's under right now with this.
Yeah, whether it's self-imposed or whatever.
Absolutely. Maybe not everybody, but majority of the population is under chronic stress right now.
Yes.
And the brain like really interprets it in a way that's very similar to like a threat, fight or flight mechanism.
That would make sense. Sure.
So you have like this piece in our brain, it's called the amygdala, which is kind of like, have you heard about? So the amygdala is kind of like the main section. It's like emotional processor. It's like our smoke detector.
Sure.
It's all wrapped in sensory. So it identifies, that there's some harm coming at us, or it's a threat. So our body's interpreting every day what we're experiencing as threatening, right? Makes sense.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
So then it's like that information is then sent to another area, the hypothalamus, I think, which is kind of like the control center, goes to the central nervous system, blah, blah, blah. And then it releases like adrenaline and cortisol. And it's like this shit is like pumping through your body all the time. So increased heart rates, you have digestion shuts down, or is not working as properly. You've got blood constantly being pump to the organs, heartbeats racing.
Almost all recovery stops from a performance standpoint as a movement specialist. Like almost like anytime that you get into those sympathetic states that far, your recovery basically shuts down, because I mean, like everything, like you stop digesting food, you stop even thinking, you're just trying to survive. And
absolutely, like our body's currently interpreting all of this that we're in right now as that, but it's like a ongoing state. So it may not be as acute, like the response of like way back old school brain where the tiger's attacking us, but
right.
It's kind of these little bits where the body is now being programmed.
There's a guy that wrote a book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And I thought it was fascinating. And that was basically his case, was that we are still have the biology of a tiger running over the top of the hill, and you either grab your spear and kill the tiger, or you grab your kids and run, sort of scenario. And he's like, well, there's no tiger anymore, but you still have that response. And it's like, if your kids are in the back seat, somebody cuts you off in traffic, you still have that same stress response.
Absolutely.
But back then you did something with it. You used that physical exertion, and now you let those chemicals just stew inside your body, and it gives you ulcers and all kinds of other stress responses. And it's a really interesting book.
And part of that is the awareness. I think people are just going through their day to day to day, and it becomes a norm, right? So our body just becomes over time, this is just what it feels like, right? But it's
just normal. It's just what you do.
Yeah. Wow. And if it happens for a long period, it's just like, that's how we end up, I think. Like our body's currently interpreting all of this that we're in right now as that, but it's like a ongoing state. Like if nothing's addressed, right? Like, so if someone doesn't incorporate exercise and mindfulness or yoga or massage therapy or whatever, pick your pleasure, of those, to figure out how to regulate back into like homeostasis. It's like the parasympathetic nervous system usually takes over.
Right.
And helps us get to that point. But if we're never really getting to that point, it's like you're constantly just like your motor, like your mind it's just driving constantly. There's like this constant motor running in your body.
So that's like when we try to get people to relax in here, we're like, we just want you to relax. It's like a relaxation becomes like, me talking people into relaxing is like me talking them into like running miles and miles and miles. It's like they're like, I am relaxed. It's like, yeah, I can tell.
Right. No, it's really difficult.
Yeah, because the norm has become that like really tensed up. Yeah. It's really wild to see. And from the research, it looks like that, from my perspective and what I do, it looks like people just age dramatically faster. And that's like, you point to like the gray. Yeah, I got a little gray.
I mean, just me as a whole in general. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys don't know this, but Brian's actually only 22 years old.
Yeah. That's good.
It's a wild deal though. It's because you would never know. If it's just your normal, you would never know. And to break out of that normal would be extremely uncomfortable for an extended period of time, like weeks.
Right. And if you've never been taught like skills, like mindfulness, meditation, whatever, but something that slows down and makes you aware of what's going on in your body, right? Like the physiological responses, the heart rate, the shallow breathing, things like that. You're just going to be going as though that's the norm. And you're never, ever going to get back to that place where you're kind of like feeling at a place where you're kind of calm and relaxed again.
People in isolation without, what are you seeing as the unintentional consequences around this with COVID-19?
So I'm seeing, just in terms of like our local community, we're seeing a ton of our agencies that are closing down that usually help people with mental illness. So we've got local therapy centers.
What you do is close down.
What I do, yeah. I mean, we've moved everything to kind of like online virtual.
Yeah, us too, but there's still not that connection. There's not, you can't, like, good luck giving somebody a hug.
Absolutely. And so you've got therapists that are shut down. You've got, psychiatrists that are shut down. You've got Shelter House in Iowa City who's limiting their intake of people. Case managers, social workers, all of these people that require relationships like you're talking about. So trust is a really important piece, right? So you got people in these like already, let alone like people who are managing their mental health for the most part or haven't had it before. There's people also that have been struggling way before this. All of their resources are being shut up and stopped. So, I mean, what you're going to see, I think, coming out of this is that we're going to have like a huge influx, and it's probably already happening now as we speak. People in the ERs.
Google domestic abuse right now.
Oh, I'm sure
It's
in a local community mental health perspective, it's awful. I mean, they've shut down every possible resource, including a gym, right? Um, and to back one thing up, I know you're running behind, but I was thinking about the way this gym specifically, how you guys train, and I was thinking why it's so important for me. And there's a really strong connection for me when you were talking about how people come in and they're so busy, but the way like you train Tori in the past, other people, is that you can go as much as you want, lift as much weight as you want, but everything gets slowed down at the gym if you're not moving correctly. Like you'll point something out, Tori will point something out, and people have to be mind and body connected all the time. So it makes me think about like that information on like how people are trained in mindfulness. There's a really similar correlation between how you guys train.
Oh, that's
and
great. That's great. That's fantastic.
That's my take.
Thank you. Thank you. And real quick before we jump off, like, do you think that it's possible for a space like what we run to still be responsible, showing reasonable concern for the illness? Yeah, like reasonable concern, like keeping, like they said, to keep groups less than 6 feet apart, that kind of thing. Do you think that's possible?
I don't know why not. We talked about this within the parks. I thought that was a brilliant idea. Like, why can't you go to Target and they've got those 6 feet like spacers out?
Yeah.
With a Hy-Vee. I have a friend who works at Michael's, the craft store. They're still open. Michael's is open, as though that's an business.
I did like it that there's a joke here somewhere. I don't know where it is, but the liquor stores were deemed essential at the beginning.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's just kind of funny. But
looking at it from a healthcare perspective, that's what we should be looking at as. Like, I'm getting like constant emails blasted right now from the university, and like they always have like these how to do self-care, and exercise is like always number 2 or number 3 of the bullets.
Yeah.
But you have to do it at home, or you do online, but it's so different because the isolation is what's missing too, right?
Because there's something to just being around another human and feeling that connection and being able to have a pat on the back or a high five, or just being in a state of just absolute positivity and where you're safe to express and explore who you really are, sort of thing. And I don't know how you're going to replicate that in a digital medium. And I'm very concerned for the fallout from a mental health standpoint, and not just for people that already know that they have issues. I'm more concerned with the people that have no idea that this could be an issue for them.
I think it's going to come in all kinds of ways. I mean, there's people that financially are going to be strained. Like, it's all going to be a ripple effect across the board, let alone on top of that, like long-term health care, like long-term health issues from heart and diabetes and all that lovely stuff.
Yeah, but if we can mitigate any of it, man, like let's go for it. But well, that's what I was curious about, was just like how common, not necessarily mental illness, but just how common, like, I don't know what I'm really asking here, but like how common is it, I guess, is an easy way to say it.
Have you heard of NAMI? It's like the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It's
no,
really well-known organization. They do a lot of kind of somewhat correlated to the CDD, but they do a lot of data collection and just kind of epidemiology and things like that. And so I think some of their stats on current, like I think like 1 in 5 adults have had some episode or an event where they were being treated at some point in their life for mental illness. And it's like
1 in 5 is pretty heavy. I mean, 1 in 5, what is that? That's like what is that, like 18%, something like that?
No,
it's 20%.
That's right.
Yeah, it's right on 20%.
Good math, man.
Hey, thanks.
Really good.
What can I say? I was doing a little research before you popped on this, and I just did how many people are on some kind of psychoactive medication. I thought that, I just Googled it. Google said 1 in 6. So I thought that was really interesting. And I mean, that's somebody on an antidepressant or an anxiety medication. I thought that was, so there's the 1 in 6 are severe enough that they actually take a medication. I thought that was interesting. Did that surprise you at all, or is that like, that seemed low numbers?
When I was doing trauma therapy in Chicago, it was all on sexual abuse. Story, but statistics
I don't know how you do it, man.
It's really crazy. The statistics on sexual abuse in this ranges, but at the time when I was there, that was in 2009, they were giving our stats at like 1 in 4 girls and like 1 in 6 boys have had some.
Wow. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6